Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's session. Control your margins and control your operations, building resilience in the automotive aftermarket. Thanks for joining us today, whether you're tuning in from a national parts distributor, a regional factor, or a multi-branch aftermarket business, or an independent supplying garages to your local area. We've built today's session with you in mind. I'm Richard Jenkins, Proposition Manager here at Klipboard. I look after our collection and delivery portfolio, so anything that helps you get parts out the warehouse, onto vans and to your garage customers with fewer drops, tighter ETAs and less noise on the phones.
And I'm Lydia Smith, Proposition Manager for our warehouse management portfolio. So my focus is everything that happens before Rich's world takes over, from stock accuracy, receiving, pick and pack efficiency, branch and warehouse visibility, and making sure that the right part is in the right place at the right time. So between us today, we just want to give you a really practical view of what's happening in the automotive aftermarket right now, where margin is quietly leaking and how leading parts distributors are taking back control without ripping out the systems you've already invested in.
Great, so quick housekeeping before we dive in. We'll be running for around 45 minutes today with some time at the end for Q&As. Please drop your questions in the chat as we go and we'll get to as many as we can.
So alongside Rich and myself today, we have a number of speakers joining us. We have Chris Shorten from OpenECX, who are one of Klipboard's partners. We also have Gabe Cohen joining us from the US, who is Vice President of Sales Strategy. And we have Ben Nichols based in the UK, who is Head of Account Management for Automotive.
The session is being recorded, so you'll get a copy afterwards along with a few resources and that we'll reference along the way.
So today we're going to walk through a couple of main themes. So how connected mobile workflows can improve branch fulfillment and delivery efficiency, how Klipboard solutions can actually help you strengthen your customer service and delivery visibility.
And we'll finish with some real-world examples of distributors already seeing the benefit, so you can see what good actually looks like in practice.
Before we get into the how, let's spend a few minutes on the why, because the market backdrop is quite an important part of what's happening at the moment. And that main headline is that businesses such as yourselves are being asked to move faster and you've got less room for error, and then those costs and complexity keep rising.
So first, the scale. The US remains the largest individual automotive market, valued at over $130 billion. China is the fastest growing market. Germany is leading Europe, and the UK and France are showing strong growth, driven by rising e-commerce adoption and premium service providers.
So here in the UK, despite obviously quite a lot of economic pressure and a bit of a drop in earlier units, the wider UK automotive industry still contributes over £92 billion in turnover and supports nearly 800,000 jobs. So obviously this is a really large, resilient market, but it is one that we know is changing really rapidly underneath the surface.
Yeah, and there are some big long-term drivers reshaping demand. Hybrid and plug-in servicing is growing fast. Petrol hybrid and electric vehicle service complexity is about 35% higher than that of conventional vehicles, which changes what your garage customers need to hold, order and turn around. Battery diagnostics, refurbishment and replacement are emerging as a whole new category.
And digitization is accelerating everywhere. So in Germany, for example, the online share of aftermarket parts sales exceeded 30% in 2023, driven by B2B platforms which integrate cataloging and ordering directly into workshop software. In North America, more than 60% of workshops in mature markets now source significant volumes online. So price is still really important, but that delivery, reliability, flexible payment, and strong support are becoming the decisive factors.
So, bringing that to life, here's how we'd summarise the market reality for automotive parts distributors right now. Margin pressure is rising everywhere, but for different reasons. Cost volatility dominates in the US, while price-driven competition is squeezing margins across the UK and Europe. Customers are becoming more price sensitive. The shift to lower cost and private label parts is accelerating, especially in mature European markets. Buying behaviour is rapidly digitising as well. Online procurement is now mainstream in the US and Europe, with the UK quickly catching up. When operational complexity continues to increase, Europe faces the greatest complexity here due to fragmented markets, regulatory variation and cross-border distribution, while the US manages complexity at scale. And the UK sits in between these with high digital adoption but tighter operational margins.
We're also seeing that vehicle park dynamics are really driving demand, but it ends up shaping strategy differently. So in Europe and the UK, those aging vehicles are creating stable long-term demand for parts and maintenance, whereas the US is combining a large and aging park with higher variability in consumer spending and demand cycles. We're seeing that the technology shift is global, but those capability gaps differ by region. So the growth in electric vehicles, hybrids, and those advanced systems is increasing product and service complexity everywhere. But European markets are being more heavily shaped by regulation and electrification policy, while US adoption remains more gradual and mixed. So pulling that all together, the market reality is that you're being squeezed on demand, cost, complexity, digital expectations, and a changing product mix all at once. And that's exactly why that sort of business as usual approach with manual processes, spreadsheets, disconnected branches, and reactive delivery isn't going to hold up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us neatly to the next section, where these pressures actually show up in the day-to-day of an automotive parts distribution business and what leading distributors are doing differently.
So, Ben, one thing we're hearing a lot about is margin pressure. Are customers telling you that it's getting harder to protect profitability at the moment?
Absolutely. I think we've heard that for a long time, but I think now is pretty prevalent. Whether it's rising supplier cost, increased competition, price-sensitive customers, all this creates a squeeze on margin. It's nothing new. It does seem quite loud at the moment. What's interesting is it's rarely one thing that's causing the problem. More often than not, it's small things, inefficiencies stack up over time, a bad process here or a slowdown there. It all stacks up. Maybe a supply cost not being updated on a system quickly enough. Maybe the pricing's not been updated that's driving quickly enough. Teams using manual processes, and being able to monitor and see the stats that's driving that. If people are at all those things are part of that. The challenges that we've been asked to face are that customers compete on price, availability, and service. 3 points of a value triangle, which is not easy. It's not easy in any market, and you can't always do that. You can't always hold all three of those. So I think doing the best that you can within those three is the important thing. You could increase costs in the system, but not really increase costs. Use ghost pricing. If there's a business culture of racing to the bottom, looking at purchase price and a pricing strategy around that you just can't avoid in the business because of people or process, well, make the system work for you and make that cover that gap. You could put 5% on cost as a ghost cost. If 5% comes out the other end, you're pretty happy, and it makes a big difference.
So over to you, Gabe. So Ben's described margin pressure coming from lots of small inefficiencies stacking up. Are your customers telling you the same thing, and how is it affecting them day to day?
Yeah, our customers are definitely telling us that it is getting much harder to protect profitability. And they're dealing with that in a variety of different ways. But what that's really impacting is a lot of the cash flow around their business and how much money they actually have on hand for all of their operations. And we're seeing customers come up with pretty unique and creative ways to try to get around this problem. So we've got some customers that are really impacted by tariffs right now in the US and the tax that they have to pay when the items they're buying for their customers come into the country. And that added cost to their business has really hurt cash flow. And some of them are working with the government to try to get special tax treatments for their warehouses so that they don't actually have to pay the tariff until the item is sold and leaves their business. And that really helps them with the cash flow management and making sure that they're not having money leave the business at a time when the money's not coming in for that item as well.
So we can see that customer expectations seem to be changing really rapidly at the moment, and they're expecting more of a B2C style experience in a B2B environment. Ben, what are auto parts businesses dealing with here?
Okay, yeah, so yeah, customers expect the same experience from their parts supplier that they receive as consumers. We see that more and more and more. I think that's an obvious thing in a lot of industries, and it's certainly pretty obvious in the industries that we serve. They want accurate stock information, they want fast ordering, they want clear delivery updates, confidence that everything's actually available. They want to consume this through new channels, whether that's online or whatever the channel is. That those things are changing and those things are evolving in a much more consumerist kind of way, I think. So that's generally digital, and therefore needs to be pretty seamless, accurate and seamless. The industry's long had an Amazon-esque same day, next day notion, and that's not backing off. That's growing. That's definitely the direction of things here. The expectation's simple. If somebody orders a thing, they want to know where and when it's arriving. I think if you digitize that solution, there's a lot of sense in that. People expect that Amazon buying experience now, even in business. People expect those well-known courier DPD type delivery transparency things that they get. You take it from home life into work, and I don't see why that would be any different. So yeah, we do see it evolving that way. We get a lot of dialogue with customers striving to achieve those things.
So Gabe, Ben's talked about that kind of Amazon style, know exactly where my order is, expectation, carrying over into business. Are you seeing that same shift, and where is it showing up most for your customers?
Here at Klipboard, we've got this idea of what we call liquid expectations, where our customers' customers are taking the expectations they have in their everyday consumer lives, like when they watch Netflix or when they browse on Amazon, and then they expect those kinds of things from their business relationships as well. And so one area that we're seeing that heavily is just around like delivery management, where you're expecting something from Amazon, you're constantly getting notifications about that delivery's left the warehouse and whether or not it's getting close and what time it's going to actually be delivered to your house. And with Autopart customers, they're starting to make sure that they have those workflows built into their delivery operations, so that they're sending customer texts and emails so that their customers can know exactly when they should expect to receive a specific item and that they're there to receive it at the right time.
So we often hear about legacy systems holding businesses back. Ben, what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, it's a pretty often thing. Not everybody's at a different stage along a journey of how well they use a system, how well digitized they are, and that's not wrong. That's fine. Everybody's at a different stage of that. Many people have got good systems in place, but the information's really spread out and really scattered around the business. Some people are using spreadsheets, manual processes. All these things are viable, but probably not very scalable, I think is a lot of the challenge there. The time taken in chasing those updates or checking that spreadsheet or all those kind of things are a real blocker to progress. Like, in a warehouse setting, for example, inventory information is pretty key, and having that digitized just makes a whole heap of sense. I think if you go and digitize simple things like stock taking, you're proving what's in the building. You can rely on it. You know that you can serve a customer. You know that you're not going to let them down by going and trying to get it off the shelf and it's not there. You're improving your stock valuation. All these things are pretty simple, easy things. So yeah, I think manual processes, bad processes, scattered systems, they create pain, and they're a blocker to progress. That pushing forward and growing is very difficult on segregated systems.
Over to you, Gabe. So Ben's made that point that legacy setups leave sort of information scattered and kind of hard to scale. From your perspective, what's the real risk when those older systems can't keep up?
Back in the day, it used to really be that you just needed a kind of core ERP system to manage your entire operations, from stocking inventory to selling parts and delivering those parts. But as time has gone on, we've seen so many other amazing technologies built that can bolt on to your ERP and really enhance your overall operations. And those kinds of platforms today are expected in the market in order to really compete. And what we see is that legacy systems often don't work well or integrate with those other technologies that get built to keep people competitive. And I think that CRM is probably the clearest example of this today, where right now there's a huge aging workforce. You've often got the one or two salespeople that know your customers intimately well. They're honestly like best friends with them. And they aren't necessarily tracking the sales activities and work that they're doing with those various customers. And so those one or two people retire. All of a sudden, you've hired a new workforce of sales reps, and they lose all of that visibility into the relationships and the types of things that those customers were buying. And there's a huge lag in your sales while you're getting those people ramped up to speed and they're rebuilding those relationships. And so one of the big things that we're seeing is people on legacy systems don't have the ability to connect to those kinds of platforms that keep them at the leading edge and prevent these risks in their business, like lost tribal knowledge.
Let's just talk a bit about how the market itself is shifting. Ben, how is the move towards EVs changing the way that auto part businesses are managing their inventory at the moment?
You've only got to look out of the window on the motorway on the way to work or anywhere that you go in to see there's a very different blend of cars on the road now, and that's changing really fast, whether that's manufacturers' models, mainly manufacturers, and that includes EVs. A lot of changing their makeup of what stocks sensible to have in the business on hand and what makes sense to order in on occasion and do as buyouts. That's definitely a thing. The demand patterns are shifting. These are friction parts. The ICE combustion parts are probably sinking, and the wearables are definitely increasing, I would have thought. Customers have got to think differently about their stock profiles, and they've got to talk to their suppliers, and they've got to work that through with them and understand how they see it changing as well. The big question is, are you holding the right stock at the right time and the right amount? Nobody wants to be overexposed on stock holding, and no one wants to carry too much, but you certainly want to have it when somebody asks, and that's really important. Visibility to what you've got and what you can get is going to be paramount. Keeping an eye on those minimum maximums in systems is going to become more frequent, because the whole dynamic of what parts to have is changing. Keeping on top of those is really, really important. And the criteria that you're setting that on as well, it's not just a case of how often am I looking at these things, it's what criteria am I calculating this on. Usages and lead times, rankings for popularity, all those things are really important now.
So Gabe, Ben's described the EV shift, sort of forcing customers to rethink their stock profiles entirely. Are there other shifts in the market that you're seeing that are changing how these businesses are managing their inventory?
This really relates to another question around where our customers are looking for more margin. And there's a big shift in the industry right now to heavy equipment, machinery, and parts. And our customers realizing that they have really good supply chain for passenger vehicles today, but also have the relationships and capability to also service the heavy equipment and heavy machinery parts industries. And that's a great way where they can increase their margin because they can make more on those parts. And so we're starting to see more, we'll say, passenger part suppliers take corners of their warehouse and start to section those off and start to store some heavy duty equipment parts that they can start to work into the workflow of their business, and then build the relationships to sell those parts to heavy equipment customers that they may not have had today. And that's becoming an ever expanded part of their business because of the opportunity that's in the heavy equipment market that there still is.
So looking across all of these challenges, Ben, what do you think separates the businesses who are succeeding from those who are struggling?
The common themes are control and visibility. They're very much systems and process things, But I think there's a sentiment here as well, and it's very much in the appetite, and the appetite to change and engage is really, really important, I think, for a business now. Businesses aren't performing their best. I think they need to engage, and I think they need to look introspectively at themselves and what they're doing, and just ask that question of yourself. I'm doing this thing and I'm doing it repeatedly, or I'm doing it slow, and how can I do that different? What can I do to make this better? What can I do there? And then the process flow for that is collaboration, whether that's talking to industry peers, whether that's talking to industry bodies, IAAF and people like that, and talking to us as well. We see a lot of examples of how people do things in different styles and different ways, and some are more efficient for one reason or more efficient for another. And we can add some colour to that, and we can add some context to that of what are the things we're seeing going on. So I think appetite to change and the engagement of that is probably more important than the control and visibility, really. They're technical things, but the sentiment's really a driver in that. When you've got that visibility, decisions become easier. You can become more productive, and you're basing your direction on facts. You're basing your direction on known quantities. You're making informed decisions and an informed direction of travel. So I think that's the difference maker, really. It's right tooling, accurate tooling that gives you good, valid information. But what you do with it, what the appetite is, and just asking yourself that question: how do I do this better?
So Gabe, Ben has landed on control and visibility, and crucially that appetite to change, as something that sets the winners apart. When you look at your best performing customers, what do you think makes the difference?
When I look at our customers and the ones that are performing the best, it's clearly the ones that have the most focus around the metrics that really matter for their business. It's so easy to get lost in all of the metrics and things that you can track, but being able to drive your team towards a clear set of here's the 2 or 3 things that we're going to focus on for our business, and making sure that every part and section of the organization is driving towards those things is really what makes the difference. So it might be the time to deliver needs to come down, or that your average margin needs to increase, or that your inventory turnover improves, but it can't be everything all at once. It really has to be a set of focus metrics that you think is going to lead you to being more competitive than the other companies that are in your market. And so the companies that I've seen do that the best are the ones that are winning right now.
Thanks, Ben and Gabe. Those are really valuable perspectives. Next, we're going to take a look at the solutions ecosystem that can help automotive parts distributors address these challenges.
So starting on the homepage, we are going to go into receiving. Now from here, we have 2 different ways we can book in our goods. So we have goods in, which will book in your stock and put them onto a put away location, where later on you can pick them up and use them to put away. Or we have goods to location, where similarly you can scan your goods, you can put them in, and you put them straight on the shelf. So 2 different ways that you can do your goods in. So starting with goods in, we've got a few options here. We can either straight away type in our purchase order number, or we can choose to scan our purchase order number. And as you can see, this has actually stacked the purchase orders. So if you have multiple orders coming in from one supplier, you can put them all in at the same time. So we can now start unpacking our boxes and scanning them to put them away. And you see, as we scan each one, in no particular order, they start stacking up. We can also choose to select the item if you've got a larger quantity, and you can type in the quantity you've received or use the plus and minuses. Once we confirm this, we can see that these orders are now ready and we can complete here. Just on the right hand side of the screen, we can see they're going into location GIN, which for us is goods in. So we're going to complete this session, and that is our stock now booked in. We are going to go into put away. On the screen again, we've got a few options. So we have got ad hoc, So from here we go straight into location GIN, so goods in. We can scan to choose a different location, but we're going to choose our part numbers. So we've selected here. We have got the BAF 10s and we have got 16 of them. And it is showing us the destination. So we have AA 103. We're going to select a different location and we're going to choose to go to AA 101. And we can now see our destination has changed on the screen. We can choose the number we're putting away, or we can scan. So we have 16 to put away. I'm going to put all 16 on the shelf. So that is now done. They have been put on that shelf, and we can either continue with another part number, or we can stop for put away. We can also create a list of items to put away. So if we create a list, we can get a tote ready. So we can pick our tote number, and we can simply start scanning the products we would like to put away. So each time we scan, obviously the quantity will go up. So we have 2 of each here, and I'm now going to create this list. In order to put away this list, we are going to go into the location option, and we're going to simply scan our tote again. And now we can see everything that's in that tote. You can see we've already had something that was in there. And as before, we can scan the location we're at, and we can scan the part number starting. So we can scan at 15, and we can start choosing the number we are putting away. As we work our way through it, we can scan the other items as well and start putting all of these away. And once we're completed, we are going to put stop put away. That is the products now put away in their locations. Starting on the home page, we are going to go to the packing option. And from here, we'll see we have a number of ways to find our pick notes. Starting with ad hoc, we can select this, and then we can either scan or we can type in our pick note number. Coming back out from here, we also have the pack list. This shows in a list all of the pick notes waiting to be packed. At the top of this page, we can also run pack inquiries, product inquiries, location inquiries, and tote inquiries. If I come back out here, we can also run from location. So when I go into this, we will need to scan our tote location. And this will bring up everything that is currently within that tote. From here, we can type in our package number. And we can start checking off the items. As we scan each item, we can see that will come to the top and it will start adding on to the total. Once we reach the total, the item will vanish. Once this is completed, it will take us to the beginning to start checking our next items. We can check what has been packed by running a pack inquiry. If we go to this option, we can scan or type in the package number. This will then show us everything that we have just packaged. It will show us the customer and the customer code it's for, as well as any weights, and give us the option to reprint the label. From the screen, we can also move products from one tote to another. So if we go into tote to tote, we can then scan or type in our original tote number. In this case, we have tote number 2. We can then see everything that is currently within this tote. If we want to move it, we can type in or scan our new tote number and then start scanning the product across from one to the other. Once that's completed, we can rescan our tote number 1 and we'll see that all of the products are. In this video, I am going to show you how to count stock using our eStockCheck app. So the stage we are at the moment on the app, we are at the check files. So you would have already generated your stock check within Autopart following your usual procedures. At the top here, we can search for the sheet we are looking for, or we can scan it if we are still printing out. From here, I'm going to select my sheet. I'm going to see there's only one section to this sheet, so I'm going to start counting. This will then show us the bin we need to be at, and we can start by scanning our bin. Here we can see a full list of all of the products that are at the bin, and we have an option now. We can either select the product and start inputting the amount we have, or we can actually scan the product, and each time we scan the product, you see it adds 1 to the count. Once we are happy that our count is correct, we can confirm the product. We can also scan our product again to go straight to that product, and it's automatically put 1 in. And again, we can keep scanning as we count. And if we choose to type in a number, this adds to the total. Once we are happy with all the products that are counted, we are now going to select change bin. This marks this bin as counted, and we can complete this count. On to the next page now. We can start again. We can type in our bin or scan if we need to. And again, it takes us to our products and we can start counting. Once you're happy again, we can confirm these products. You complete this process until you are happy that everything has been checked, and then you return back to Autopart to follow your usual processes.
I'm now going to pass over to Chris Shorten from OpenECX, who are one of Klipboard's partners. He's going to talk through some of the issues that automotive parts businesses are dealing with right now and how to address those issues without ripping out the systems or tech you already have in place. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Lydia. Hi, everybody. I am Chris Shorten. I'm the partner account manager at OpenECX, Klipboard's Gold partner for invoice automation and AP automation. We also work on the order to cash side as well. But yeah, we specialize in the automation of business to business documents. And really, I just wanted to, in keeping with the theme so far, talk to you about some of the challenges in the automotive industry and perhaps how we can help tackle those. And in a world of ever rising and increasing costs, perhaps looking at ways that you can save money, streamline existing processes within your business, and looking at maybe just doing things differently and looking at a new world, I suppose, in terms of digital transformation and how you can streamline processes. So today we're not going to go around in circles and talk about digital transformation. I'm going to focus on really 3 main problems that you'll be living with right now, and just talk about how OpenECX can help you tackle those issues. And like I said, hopefully give you a bit of a view into what we do and how we work and where we sit in the industry. So yeah, like I mentioned, we're going to focus on just 3 main issues that I'm sure you'll be experiencing within your businesses currently. Challenge 1. Margin pressure, quite an obvious one. A lot of rising costs and smaller and ever smaller margins, and every penny counts, doesn't it? Parts costs are rising, customers are more price sensitive than ever, and it's easier for them to compare you against a competitor with one search. So it's squeezing margins across the board. And the thing is, you can't always control your costs with everything that's going on in the world. You know, everything really matters, you know, down to the nth degree. So what you can control is how much it costs you to actually run the business behind the scenes. So if you think about it in terms of streamlining a finance process, and that's really where we do a lot of our work and focus really on our main pillar, which is invoice automation. A lot of the businesses that we speak to, you know, they may have a platform in place that is doing a job for them, or alternatively, there might be a relatively manual process in place for keying in invoices into your back-end system. So it might be that you're keying in invoices by hand. You might have AP clerks doing that for you and getting that data into your back-end system, into your Autopart system. Or you might have a statement that's being reconciled manually, which obviously is very time-consuming, laborious, and you might not have the manpower to do, you know, a huge percentile of your supply chain, and you might only have the ability to reconcile a few percent of your supply chain. Or even on the order to cash side, you might have orders getting keyed into the system as well. So it's all costs to your business. It's all hidden in some ways, but it's all real costs. And when margins are tight, cutting those costs, you know, it's the fastest way to saving a bit of money, I suppose. This is exactly where we come in terms of invoice automation, order to cash automation. We can take those invoices, flood it into your finance team, and we can transfer the data from those invoices electronically into clean format and put that straight into your Autopart system. So no rekeying, no chasing, no errors creeping in. One of our clients was spending about 3 full days a week reconciling supplier statements. And after we'd come in and put our statement reconciliation solution in there, that's dropped to 30 minutes. So we've essentially give somebody a full week of work back in a way. So, you know, I suppose it speaks for itself in terms of the time saving that it's going to give you and give back to your business. So it doesn't mean always cutting costs on your suppliers or raising prices on customers. Sometimes it just means stripping back, you know, what's in the business at the moment and streamlining processes. Another challenge I wanted to speak to you about was digital expectations. So yeah, that's the second on the agenda. I think in the world that we're living in now with AI and increasing demand from customers, they expect a certain level of service in a way. You know, they expect everything to be instant. They expect you to have the latest technology, and there's definitely a huge expectation on businesses in 2026 to be, you know, with the times and doing things, you know, in the most efficient way possible. So you know, garages, workshops, fleets, whoever you sell to, they want to check stock in real time. They want to place orders quickly at any hour. They want to get instant confirmations, and if they can get that from you, or if they can't get that from you, they'll go somewhere else and get that from somebody. So businesses are losing ground, you know, that haven't got these systems in place. So if you think about it in terms of ordering automation, that's a really good one to focus on, I suppose, for digital expectations. It captures orders the moment they come in. You know, it's not taking a team member minutes to key one order in. We can get it ingested into the system, transfer all that data in a clean format, and process that straight into your Autopart system in a matter of seconds. We'll also build some validations and rules along the way too. But yeah, we can get this data straight into your backend system in a really clean and efficient way. So you don't need to overhaul your whole customer experience overnight. You need the sort of unglamorous stuff. You need the order intake and confirmation working at a, you know, lightning speed. And it means that obviously in terms of orders, they're the lifeblood of the business. You want them into your backend system, processed quickly. It's obviously the mission critical as well. If I talk about moving on to the next challenge, I suppose legacy systems, fragmented data. This one might be, you know, relevant to some of the people, you know, watching this webinar. A lot of automotive businesses running on systems that have served them well for years, but they've never really built to talk to each other easily. So you end up with manual workarounds, spreadsheets to do reconciliation of supplier statements. You know, a lot of the processes in place can be quite manual, time consuming, not very slick. So it's expensive. It slows down processes. It means suppliers aren't paid on time, and really just generally quite inefficient. So the good news is you don't have to overhaul your whole back end system to speak to us. You know, OpenECX is integrated into Autopart, sits on top of your existing systems. We're already there. We already connect the dots, so you don't need a massive overhaul of systems to implement OpenECX. The crucial thing is as well, we don't ask your suppliers or customers to change how they're currently working with you. We just make sure the data flow in between everyone lands in a clean and accurate way, and in one place as well. So it's a really key thing for us that we don't expect any of your suppliers to change or customers, how they're currently working with you. If they send their invoice into an existing mailbox currently, we will ingest that invoice, we'll stick an auto forward into your existing mailbox, pick up that invoice or order, and transfer that data straight through into Autopart in a matter of seconds. So yeah, it means as well that, you know, you don't have to scale as your business grows, which is really crucial. So why would you think about doing something like this? And maybe, you know, maybe if you've not looked at automating processes, whether it is on the order to cash side, whether it is on the invoice automation side, or reconciling supplier statements, if it's not been on your radar yet, why do you think that you should look at maybe, you know, having a conversation and opening that door? If you're not aware, there's recently been announced there's a mandate in April 2029 for every VAT registered business in the UK to issue invoices in a structured electronic format. So the UK government, yeah, it's confirmed that's happening from April 29. It's not optional, and it's really not that far away. So businesses that are getting ahead of the curve, you know, you'll be doing yourselves a massive favor in the long run if you start having these conversations in advance of April 29. You know, by the time that date hits, you'll already be settled and you'll already know, you know, where you sit and what your plans are for the future. And another point to make is we've spent, you know, over a decade working with businesses, manufacturers, finance teams, automotive companies, and we specialize in this process. You know, this isn't just like an afterthought or an ad hoc thing that we do amongst a lot of other software. This is our bread and butter. We specialize in this every single day, and it's what we live and breathe. So yeah, you're in good hands if you want to open a conversation and start talking to us. And just lastly, before I finish, just wanting to focus on some key USPs, I suppose, and things that make us different from perhaps some other competition, some other businesses that you may have spoken to in the past that do invoice automation. We do a lot of things differently. We take care of your supplier onboarding, for example. That's a really key thing for us. I suppose the reason being, we don't want this to be a really heavy IT project for you as a business. I suppose that would be counterproductive. We're supposed to be making this a really streamlined process for you, and making your business more efficient. The last thing we want to do is then give you a bigger, heavy IT project, expect you to onboard all of your suppliers. So we'll do that as a managed service. We'll do the testing, we'll do the go live and move through UAT with you, without adding all that extra pressure of another project to your team's workload. And I mentioned earlier, your suppliers can keep working in the way that suits them. You know, if they want to keep sending their invoices or orders into the mailbox that they're sending them into today without any cost to your suppliers or customers, they can still do that. We also do line level matching. So we don't just do header level capture. We do full line level matching that catches discrepancies, reduces errors, stops queries at source. And because we connect directly into Autopart system, which you're already using, you can start seeing the value in weeks. And this is not going to be a heavy, you know, month long lengthy IT project. You know, we can get a project stood up in as little as 4 to 6 weeks, which is, you know, very, very quick. So you can realize quick time to value. I mentioned earlier, no cost to your suppliers. We've got a really, really quick rollout, and we've already connected and got connections across a huge network of 17,000 businesses already trading in some way through our platform. So it might be that many of your suppliers and customers may already be known to us and be already be connected in some way to our platform. So it'd be great to continue the conversation, and if it is of interest in speaking to myself and OpenECX, then please do reach out to the Autopart team, and they'll reach out to me and we can have a conversation. All right, thank you very much.
Unfortunately, we are running a little bit short on time. Thank you very much if you have added a question into the chat. We will send around an email following the webinar with all of the answers so everyone can get a look. But thank you again for joining us today. We'll see you next time.